And welcome back in Stripe Show podcast. Got a tournament under our belt out there in Hawaii, Sentry Tournament of Champions. Harris English gets his third win on the PGA Tour. And don't say I didn't tell you, right? If you watch the podcast, you listen to it. Early in last year, we had Justin Parsons on, his coach. And you could see the trend with Harris English, all phases of the game, and he finally gets it done. His third win on the PGA Tour, first since 2013. But that wasn't the only story. What a week. Goodness gracious in golf. Gary Player, Annika Swordstam, the Medal of Freedom day after the chaos there at the Capitol. JT gets in a little trouble. The anti-gay slur. John Rahm dropping F-bombs all over the place. Mike Wom stepping down at the LPGA. And then on the PGA, 2022, they're going to move the tournament from Trump Bedminster. So all kinds of things happening in the world of golf. So I figured I'd call my buddy out there in Scottsdale, Arizona, Golf Channel analyst Arron Oberholser. What a week, buddy.
I saw something on Twitter where someone posted this, and it was just kind of a random thing where it said something to the effect of, I've had my 7-day trial of 2021 and I'd like to cancel. And that's kind of where I'm at right now myself. I'm like, it's just, we're not out of the woods yet, obviously. There's still a long way to go.
Yeah, there is. There's a long ways to go, and hopefully 2021 will smooth out a little bit. But this isn't a political show. We talk golf here, and we had some golf out there in Hawaii. Harris English, someone I know you know very well, gets his third win, as I mentioned, on the PGA Tour. And I was looking, Arron, at his statistics, official World Golf rankings. 2 years ago, on this day, he was 313th in the world. He was ranked 313th. And after the win, he's now 17th. I talked with Justin Parsons about this resurgence of his game. He won twice back in 2013, kind of lost it. But Harris English is back. Quite the turnaround. What do you think?
I think it's the process of simplification that Justin Parsons has helped Harris with. When you have the talent, and we saw the talent of Harris as an amateur at Georgia. We saw it when he came out onto the tour with early success right off the bat. So the talent's always been in there. The desire to play well has always been in there. The desire to work hard has always been in there. And I never dealt with the dips that he dealt with in his career. He had a massive dip, obviously. So it's hard for me to speak to what the feelings are when you have a massive dip like that and your game just goes away. But I can speak to seeing other players go through that and seeing some never get it back. And the guys that do keep a very level head. They keep massive perspective on what's going on, and they really focus on one day at a time. And I think Justin Parsons deserves a lot of credit, as obviously as well as Harris English, is putting this thing back together and getting him back to where I believe he belongs, which is one of the best players in the world. He's always been a phenomenal putter. And now he's got the ball striking complement back to where it's, I think it's even better than ever because of the simplification process that Justin has kind of put in there.
Yeah, you make a good point. He is a phenomenal putter.
Oh yeah.
He, man, and he always has been, especially on Bermuda, Georgia boy, he knows how to putt on that Bermuda, and he does put a beautiful roll on the ball, and he's got things now organized in his swing. He made a comment, and I quote, he said, 2 years ago, he had a different swing thought every tournament. Every single tournament, a different swing thought, a different idea. You've played the tour for many years. You know these guys. How common is that?
I would think that it's very common. I can speak for myself that I didn't have a lot of swing thoughts. I tried to dumb it down as much as possible for myself and understood that ultimately it's about getting the ball in the hole in the quickest way possible, quite honestly, in as least amount of strokes as you possibly can. But I can also see with all the information and all the data that's available to you now, even when I played, we had for the time, we had plenty of data that you could look at to a certain extent, and you could get lost in a rabbit hole if you're not careful. And I think Harris trying to be someone he wasn't. When guys go down the wrong path with their golf swings, more times than not, they see a model out there of something that isn't for them, but they get enamored with it and they fall in love with that model. And they think, I want to hit the ball like that. I remember when Tiger was playing rounds of golf with Rod Pampling. God love Rod Pampling. He loved the way Rod's swing looked. Otherwise, I mean, I know Rod's a good dude, but I don't understand how that friendship would work, quite honestly, any other way other than Tiger. I think Tiger was enamored with the way he kind of moved his body through the golf swing and how he kind of stayed on top of the ball and moved through it. And maybe that's something that Tiger wanted to look at then. But sometimes you can get enamored with golf swings and get kind of go down the wrong path for certain guys, and you start doing things that isn't you as a golfer. Yeah. And when you get lost down those holes, it's hard to come back from those. And Harris is pretty lucky to be able to come back from that rabbit hole.
Yeah, there's, I always say what you start losing confidence when you grab this thought and then you try it and it works for a day and then it doesn't work. And all of a sudden you're like, oh no, like that doesn't work. And then you go grab another thought and then another thought and your confidence is
Band-Aids.
Yeah, exactly. That is a Band-Aid. Your confidence is only as good as those little specific thoughts that work for 24 hours or whatnot.
Exactly.
But then you wrap the process around it and you just get engulfed in, this is the direction I'm heading. And I'm going to let my thoughts kind of be generated and self-discover from the structure. Right.
Yes.
And then just stay that process. And I think in a nutshell, and it's a cliche, right? I mean, it's like, just trust the process. I mean, that's what this is. I mean, this is, you're seeing a player who went from just basically thought after thought, try this, try that. And amateurs can relate to this, to someone who then got more process oriented and is now reaping the benefits of it. And it took him, he played good last year. I mean, he played great last year. He didn't win.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it took him 2 years to get here into the winner's circle. And when I talked to Justin, who is a Butch Harmon disciple, okay, last year, he works up here in Sea Island. He just talked about, he was very candid with me on what they did. And he said, look, I cleaned up some fundamentals at address and did a lot of research on how Harris used to swing the club, and how it made him work. And Harris is kind of he's a big guy. His shoulders are kind of unique in the way that they work. He has a lot of depth in his swing. His lead arm really gets around him. So he felt like they needed to get the club in a nice position halfway back. Harris tends to get the club head kind of a little inside from time to time. And when he does that, and then he gets that depth and he shallows it, he kind of gets underneath it. Sure. So you see Harris doing these little left arm rehearsals, where the club head's out in front of him. And that's the structure they created. Clean him up at address, get the club started right. So when you shallow it, the club's in position to just rotate and hit it, and he can hit his fade. And that's really what they've done, and you listen to that and you're like, well, that's simple, right? I can do that. Well, I mean, it is. That's the structure.
Super simple.
It's right. Super simple, but the organization is there. And
Trav, in all honesty, that's right on the money. But to even simplify it even more, man, Justin brought him back to him when he was trying to be somebody else. Yeah, okay. He was trying to do things with his body that everybody has a structure. I believe everybody has a structure to their body and a functionality to their body that's different than everybody else. And you might be able to take a piece here or a piece there from someone else and go, yeah, I need that piece. I'm going to try to institute that piece in my golf swing. But you're never going to be able to be somebody else completely, right? Yeah. So I think that's where Harris went wrong. And Justin got him back to being Harris. This is your body. This is the way your body moves naturally. Let's put the club, let's make the proper matchups to that what your body wants. And he just got him back to where he's always been, and maybe even cleaned it up even a little bit more, because to be able to trust it under the gun when you haven't won in 7 years, And to hit that 3-iron that he hit, I know he didn't make the putt to win outright, but to hit the 3-iron that he hit off of that downslope into that green yesterday,
big time.
I mean, you can't ask for anything more. That's validation right there that what you're doing is working, and that confidence is just going to keep building because of that.
And even the iron shot on 17 after the bogey on 16, the silly bogey.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he kind of regrouped and just hit another beautiful shot on 17 too. So
Yep.
it's, he just kind of stayed the course. You bring up some good points. Like he brought him back to Harris, and those were some of the words that he used. And this word of DNA, like what makes that player click and go. And I think the way, Harris' shoulders work, his body, and it's a little unique. Like you're not going to change that, right? And I think the other thing with Harris, and I'll go off the record now, and this is just my observation, is that Harris doesn't have a ton of flexion in his lead wrist. He's someone who rotates the face a bit more open. And he has, probably little less, of that flexion in the lead wrist. You'll see the face kind of hang a bit more open than you'll see in most players.
There's a little more cup. There's a little more cup to it for
extension.
Him. Yeah, more extension, more cup to the wrist, without a doubt. And if you're that guy, I was that guy. I was cupped at the top. Every time I try to get that there, the ball goes everywhere. Yeah. I got to have it a little cup, or else I got no prayer. Face awareness. You can't be someone you're not. Facial awareness is everything. And Justin got him back to having good face awareness.
It's interesting, right? Because like in the modern swing, if you're on, Instagram and whatnot, and like the science is going to tell you these guys are working into flexion. I mean,
sure.
Harris is working into flexion on the downswing, but it's certainly, when you look at the face is definitely more open than you're going to see from most, and certainly what is taught. I have more of an appreciation on the outside looking in when I see this kind of relationship work, where truly these are matchups that are going into the DNA of the player. And I think that's probably something that he learned from Butch Harmon, because he was the best at it. And, it's there. You can see it. I mean, it is there. The face is more open than you're going to see with most players, a very unique kind of shoulder action. And he's just kind of tailored it to, let's clean up the fundamentals. Let's get the club in a little better spot. And Harris has bought in. The other thing that he said was, and if this isn't straight from Butch Harmon's mouth, I don't know what is, but he said, the other thing that he made Harris do and his team is that they made Harris take responsibility for what he was doing. Take ownership of your team.
Yeah.
Almost kind of a hard talk. Like, this is your team. This is your livelihood. Take ownership and manage it. And that kind of hit home with me too. That's kind of straight from Butch, isn't it?
Well, I think a lot of players, Harris is a competitor. And within competitors inside the ropes, it's okay to be hard. It's okay to be kind of a jerk inside the ropes. You have to be, I think, to a certain extent. But Harris ultimately is just a class act and a heck of a guy. Mm-hmm. And some of those guys who are nice, I know outside the ropes, I had a hard time saying no. I wanted to please everybody. I wanted to do everything that I could for everybody. And yes, I'll do that. And I think the guys, you have to be selfish in this business if you want to be a top player to a certain extent. You have to be selfish with your time. You have to be, because it's what you value, and I think that learning how to say no for certain players is very difficult. And maybe that's something that Harris has learned how to do, is to say no, but to also kind of say, okay, this isn't working for me. I don't mean to be a jerk, but I can't work with you anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't do that. And I think, Butch or Justin having that talk with him and letting him realize, hey, look, dude, this is you. This is all about you. We are here for you. What do you want? That's a big deal. And looking in the mirror and as a player and having those hard truths and speaking to those hard truths and understanding those hard truths about yourself and learning how to do those things as a player and basically be your own CEO and run your own little business, okay, that's a big part of playing professional golf at the highest level. Some guys have to learn how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like it's like just saying no. I mean, it's like you said, it's probably much more difficult for some guys to do that, especially in today's game. I mean, man, there is so much out there, and just keeping yourself focused on what you need to do, I think can become increasingly more difficult. And it's really cool to see that Harris has worked through that. Another guy that's trying to work through it, I want to ask you on, and you and I had this conversation when we were out in Arizona for the PXG College Showcase, which was really cool in December. And we were talking about Spieth and where does he go? I mean, what's next? And, I've, for the better part of 2 years now, thought that he needed to seek a second opinion. And
I've thought it the same as you. I've thought it for quite a while.
And now, speaking of Butch, right? There he is. Yep. He's out there working with Butch Harmon. What are your thoughts on this with Spieth now? Cameron, it sounds like he's still on the team. McCormick, who's been with him for a long time, they've had a lot of success together. Of course, Spieth's been struggling for 3 years now, seeking advice from Butch Harmon. How do you think this plays out?
Ultimate field player, right? Jordan, see target, hit ball at target, go find ball, hit ball again. He's not a technical guy. I don't think Spieth's ever been a technical guy. He doesn't have the most technically sound grip. He didn't have the most technically sound golf swing. But what he has always had are guts, determination, and a great short game. And those things will win you golf tournaments, as we've seen, and will win you 3 major championships, as we've seen. And he's got one of the highest golf IQs I've ever seen. So it's, again, much like Harris, it's still in there. Spieth way down at the bottom of this rabbit hole, and he needs simplification, period. So many players need simplification. It's up to the instructor and the teacher and or coach to find out how to simplify it for that particular player, in my opinion. Butch is the best ever at that. I don't think that there's any argument that can be made. Keeping it simple was one of his greatest attributes to his players. And finding how to simplify it for said player. I'm sure that the simplification process for Tiger was very different potentially than the simplification process for Phil Mickelson when they worked together. So it's all, I think he tailors it to the specific player, which you have to do as a good instructor. And I'm cautiously optimistic that Butch will help Jordan kind of crawl out of this hole. The rest will be up to Jordan. And the rest will also, and quite honestly, there's so much that goes on with professional golfers in their lives, not only inside the ropes, but outside the ropes too. And then usually they tend to come together and the game starts going that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm optimistic too. It's coming off our discussion with Harris. It's like, made him take responsibility, take ownership. Kind of sounds like, Spieth maybe struggling with that just a little bit. I mean, I'm going to keep Cameron on, going to keep everything, but I'm going to go out here. Yeah, it's just like
that could be a complication. I don't know how you feel, but that could be a little bit of a complication.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, he's obviously a very loyal person. I just think, you look at compared to Justin Thomas, I mean, he's moving on. I mean, he had, you have success, and then it's hard, I think, to prolong that relationship out there, from a player coach kind of aspect. There's so many moving parts. It's such a hard game. These guys are under pressure. It's so hard to keep playing at that peak performance. And, I just think like eventually sometimes like you just need a different face and a different voice sometimes. And then maybe other times, things work out. But I just think the nature of the way everything is now, it's just part of it, and you can have a good run and good success. And then sometimes like you just need to kind of take a step away and get re-energized over here a little bit, but you got to be careful with that too. That it's not saying that everybody needs to do that, but just feels like through this long period of time that we've been seeing in the struggle, you have got to cut ties, take some ownership here, and move on, right? And get yourself moving in the right direction. And I just feel like he's still trying to kind of like, balance it all and make everybody happy.
Again, being able to say no, and like what we talked about with Harris, you're 100% right. I can't imagine how difficult it would be for Jordan if Jordan just said to look at Cameron and go, who he's known since what, 11, 12? They've been working together. So Cameron's basically he's known Cameron as like another authority dad-like figure since he was since he was 11, 12 years old. That is a hard relationship to just go ahead and break. You've had all the success. You've won 3 major championships under this guy. And then all of a sudden the game goes sideways for whatever reason. Game goes sideways. But I do think that this relationship, it can work. It can work between keeping Cameron in the loop and working with Butch, but Cameron has to be open-minded. If you get a teacher that's jealous or it can be potentially poisonous with the attitude and feels slighted because you're going to seek help elsewhere, they need to be cut immediately. Immediately. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You're out.
Yeah. It's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'd love to see Spieth get back into it. The genius is there. We know it's just keeping the ball in front of him. And I think building some confidence off the tee and off he goes.
The T-ball's the biggest thing. I agree when you're looking at the technical stuff.
Yeah. The T-ball can't be going low left. That's for sure. No. So, I want to, so it leads me to this, from an instruction standpoint. And, and I know you're very versed in this and you kind of, stay in touch with this part of the game. And it's almost like there's 2 buckets here. On one side, you've got like the Butch Harmon, Justin Parsons, maybe even Claude into this. For sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, you can put Claude in that list for sure.
Yeah. Where it's like, you have a stable, and when you look at the players, it's a variety of patterns, right? It's a variety of hinge actions, like we were just talking about with Harris. Different lead arm positions at the top of the swing. Different maybe rotational phases through the impact and how much a player is opened up. I mean, all these things kind of link together and match up. But when I look at, I see a variety of patterns. I hear them talking about things more holistically, where it's like, DNA.
Yeah.
Working with what the player does well, has done well, the DNA of their movements, not changing those things, creating this environment for self-discovery, ownership. Right. Those are the things I hear in that camp. And then on the other side, and I'm not saying like this side is not working on technique, because they are.
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
Yeah. We just talked about Harris.
I think it's more subtle.
Yeah. But it's kind of used more as part of the engine.
Yes.
Right. It's a leg.
Yeah. It's not the driving force.
Right. It's like, because you're playing bad is because it's not because of that club head went inside a half a centimeter. Right. It's like there's more to it. There's this whole holistic approach and buying into it. And then on the other side, and this is just my perception as I see it looking on the outside. I'm not saying it's like this 100%, but that's my perception as I see that side of it. Those are the things I hear. Those are the things I see. On the other side, the perception is you've got more, it's very technique driven, right? And the swings look the same. The patterns are the same. And I'm not saying that's wrong, because I agree with a lot of the patterns that I see. I see the flex lead wrist. I see change of knee flex. I see shallowing the shaft. I see rotation, get open. I see all these things. But I don't see a variety of players in those stables, right? I see a pattern. So to me, the perception is that is what's kind of, that's what this stable is, how they're going to swing it. Where on the other side, I see a lot of different patterns. So it's just interesting to me. And I know there's pros and cons, and players, as they need help, can fit into different categories. But just from the perception on the outside looking in, I kind of see, you're kind of, as a teacher, the perception is it's a little bit, what side are you on? Is that accurate?
I think that the best teachers, I personally think the best teachers take a holistic approach. And I think that guys that you might think that are method teachers, they might say that they're more holistic than they think. However, I think that the perception of those guys, at least from my perspective, is that they're more method than holistic. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. There's a couple of teachers that I think that are very technically oriented, that I think are fantastic teachers. I think it depends on what you need as a player. Yeah. So I think that there are certain matchups that if you want to reach, you might have to change some certain things. Like I remember, I've always had a problem, just speaking for me personally, I always had a problem kind of picking up the club on half the way back versus kind of continuing my term and getting depth. Mm-hmm. I always loved guys who could get deep into their swing, and I had a hard time doing that in my career because of the way I was taught young and the way I developed as a young player in the Bay Area. I've been able to get there through time through the help of more technically oriented teachers. Just in fun, now that I'm not playing anymore, I've got more time to mess around with technique and think about technique, and I think that as a player, you need to decide what you need more of. And that's dangerous because sometimes you don't know exactly what you need. And maybe not even that coach knows exactly what you need. So being aware as a player of what you need is huge, because you could go down the wrong path very simply, going more technical when you don't need technical. You need more holistic approach. For me, I'm more on the holistic side. Always have been, and I always will lean more holistically. But that doesn't mean that the technical side can be ignored. It can't be ignored, because if you have severe technical if you got bad matchups, it doesn't matter. You got to fix those matchups, and that might take some serious technical help.
Yeah, I think the key word here is perception, because I agree. I think on this side, you have good technical teachers who do have the holistic approach and the coaching expertise and the experience. There's no question, but I think it's so led and pushed out from a technical standpoint, a pattern standpoint. The components are driven, the matchups are driven, and I think that whether on purpose or not, to me, that's the way it comes across. That's the perception that I have. That's how I'm consuming it, and I think that's a very important part of the game. But my opinion on the PGA Tour, when you're dealing with these best players in the world, I would want to be if that was my business model, I would want that, but I would be trying to push more the other way, because to me, these guys are already on the PGA Tour. These guys are already the best at what they do. Yes, they need some technical work, some more than others. But I have a really strong appreciation for what I'm seeing with Harris English as part of a stable that has a lot of different patterns, and coaches that are having success with a lot of different patterns and moving the needle the right way, as Justin has with Harris.
Yeah, I think that their approach and the more holistic approach, again, I'm biased because I'm more of a feel-oriented player. So for me, I'm going to always lean to more of a holistic approach, because that's the way I was always taught growing up. Versus the technical side of things. As soon as you start, like if a teacher ever took me from here at the top, slightly cupped, and said, "No, Aaron, we got to get you here," you lost me. You 100% lost me. I'm outdoor, and we're not talking again. Okay. It's just, that's not going to work for me. That's not the way my body and the way mine works. And not only that, if you want to get down to the nuancy stuff about it, to take a guy like Harris from slightly there, or Cooch, who's like here, he wouldn't play on tour ever again.
No.
I mean, you got to. Face awareness is so important to professionals, and understanding where that ball's coming off the face every time to their cone of dispersion, and understanding that and having that awareness for their cone of dispersion, if you will, and their misses. That if you got to be very careful as a technical teacher not to change too much stuff on a PGA Tour player, or else or else you're going to be out of a job as a teacher.
I can remember when I was teaching a lot full time, and I worked with Fred Funk for a long time when he was in his early 50s on the Champions Tour. And we were, Fred's such an accurate player. And when he came back from his knee and thumb surgery, we had to, he kind of got into some bad habits. So we had to help him kind of get back organized a little bit how he used to swing it. And he got going really good. And then we started to speed it up a little bit for him. And one time he was looking on video, he goes, my lead wrist is really bowed. And Fred always has had a little bit of that at the top, not like DJ, but a little flexion at the top. And he goes, I think it's too bowed. I think we need to take some of that out. And I was like, Fred, if we continue this discussion, I'm going to turn around and walk away because we're not having it. We're not having it because
let's change our angles.
Yeah.
That's funny. I that would come out of Fred's mouth.
Like, I'm out of here. You keep talking about this.
It's just more proof of how psychotic we are as professional golfers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. Let me ask you one more question here as the tour continues here down in Hawaii. And just love this time of year watching golf in Hawaii. Now they head over to the Sony Open, been a staple on the PGA Tour for a long time. I know you've played in a handful of times. The Waialae Country Club. The Waialae, right?
Yeah, Waialae. Loved Waialae. One of my favorite courses on the PGA Tour.
Tell me what it's like. What's this golf course like?
Gosh, it's old school. It's just fantastic. I want to say it's a Seth Rayner. I think it's a Seth Rayner, if I'm not mistaken. And it's short. It's one of the shortest courses on the PGA Tour. When they don't get any rain, it's firm and fast. It plays even shorter. It's very narrow, very tight. Houses around it on certain sides. Lots of OB in certain areas. It's not a course. You can get up there and bang driver in certain holes, but it's tight enough to where you're gonna have some problems if you don't hit it accurately on certain holes. And the rough is Bermuda, about 2-3 inches. Hard to control your ball out of it. When the trades get going, it can play difficult without a doubt. But it's more of a golf course where it's one of my favorites because you can put it right up there with Harbor Town and Colonial and those types of golf courses where, listen, the longer hitters are always, Travis, going to have an advantage, but this is a golf course where anyone can truly win. Anyone can truly win on this golf course. And it's more about iron play and putting and chipping and especially when the weather gets bad, like it was last year when Cam Smith won, it was absolutely, actually turned more into a short game contest because it was so hard to hit the greens because they're so small. So it's one of my favorite golf courses just because of the variety of shots that you have to play, not only off the tee but into the hole locations and on those small sloping greens.
Well, hopefully they'll get a little win. 4 perfect days at Kapalua. I mean, they just tore that place up, and now they move over here to Waialae, which I think, Harbor Town, Colonial, I like that. So it kind of opens the door here. The field's decent, so we'll look forward to that. The Sony Open, and hey, good discussion, man. I always love talking golf, getting into the instructional world with you a little bit, and
thanks,
some peace is coming in this world. Some I just want I want normalcy, and I want to get back to my routine.
Yeah,
like
I think we all do.
Just get me into some normalcy and some routine, and off we go in 2021 because we got some big stuff. We got some big time stuff coming up. I mean, of course, we're going to the West Coast Swing. Then we come over here for the Players. We go Augusta again. All these major championships. You've got
the Olympics.
You got the Olympics, Ryder Cup.
And then right back into the FedEx Cup playoffs and then Ryder Cup right after it.
There you go. FedEx Cup playoffs and then Ryder Cup. Yep.
Yeah. And then obviously not to discount the ladies, all of their 5 majors and all the big events that they have this year too. So this is going to be a huge year in golf across the board, and a very busy year for the next 9 months for sure. Yeah,
and the LPG is going to be just fine. Mike Wan's going to leave him in good spot.
He's left him in a phenomenal spot.
Great commissioner.
Phenomenal. Finding a replacement for Mike is going to be very difficult, in my humble opinion. In my opinion, he has been probably the best based on the results and where he got that tour and where he took that tour. Probably the best commissioner in all of sports, quite honestly.
Yeah. Be interesting to see where he goes.
I've got a guess.
Okay.
My guess is the USGA is going to back up the Brinks truck for him.
Let's do it.
I think that's my guess, but there could be another couple of things. Who knows?
I think that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
I really do.
The USGA
needs Mike Wan.
They would be lucky to have him. 100%.
Hey, buddy, thanks so much. Have a good week, and we'll do it again.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it, Travis.
All right, buddy.
See ya.